three levels of problems that people most often had. One was dealing with local toughs and thugs and business bosses in areas away from China. For example, my friend David Barboza from the New York Times, who's the Shanghai correspondent of the New York Times, he was detained for some part of a day when he was down at some factory in southern China. And he went in there, and the factory's sort of private police force just arrested him. And he was trying to ask questions about labor conditions. This would have been in 2007, 2008, and it was before the Olympics, and it was before some of the recent crackdowns and the recent labor force problems. And so it was a local business warlord who was able to kind of use his own company police force and maybe the sort of city police force working privately to just arrest him. And the way, surprisingly, that he finally got out of trouble was he was able to call the US Embassy, which was able to call the Chinese Foreign Ministry in Beijing. And the Chinese Foreign Ministry finally intervened with the local police force in wherever this was, someplace in Guangdong, I don't know, I don't remember exactly what city, to get him out. So that was, I think, the area where journalists were actually most fearful was local police activity, sometimes not even real police people, but sort of private police, in a way similar to what we've heard out of Chongqing in the last few months, the way you had a kind of local semi-militarized force. That was one area where people would fear difficulties. A second area where people would get frustrated, although not really feeling any kind of physical danger themselves, would be in official press statements from the central government in Beijing, where it became just kind of a ritual, where you would ask these questions, you get an entirely formulaic answer, which is in a way like some other Western government statements, but you knew that for example, I think that maybe every 2 years or every year, Premier Wen Jiabao would have a foreign press availability, and you knew this would be a kind of just completely ritualized circumstance. There would be no real exchange of information, and dealing with the official press spokesman too, it would not be genuine in any way. So that was frustrating but not threatening. I think the third area of feeling some threat involved anything that would touch on splitism in any way, that is Tibetan issues, Uyghur issues in Xinjiang. And there, I think many of my journalist friends thought there was some actual physical danger, because there have been, I was not myself able ever to go to Tibet proper because I couldn't get a visa. I decided not to try to sneak in there. That wasn't the kind of reporting I was doing. But I was at some Tibetan ethnic areas, especially in Gansu and Sichuan also. I went to a number of Uyghur areas in Xinjiang. And you did have a sense that the government was concerned about Tibetan and Uyghur issues in a much more aggressive way than the central government than was the case in the rest of the country, where it was mainly local police forces and local sort of warlord issues that you'd be worried about. And so I think that was the only part of China where I think Western reporters, especially Americans, had the following sense. In every place except Tibet or Xinjiang, as an American in general, in specific, and a Western reporter in general, you thought the worst thing that could happen to you is that you'd have to leave.